have some of the control flow kind of capabilities that you would find in a pipeline. So maybe if you're coming from the SSIS world, you might find this familiar too, where we have separated the control flow capability from the data flow capabilities. Control flow being being able to do things like have if conditions, loops, and those kinds of things. You can see until, you'll see a switch activity, an if condition. Those are all the same sort of things as control flows. And then when you want to work deep with your data, you want to get to the row and column level and transform that data. That's when you add in a data flow, same thing as an SSIS. So if we were to do something like if we wanted to iterate over an iterator and for each have something execute every time that an iteration passes, you'd be able to go into here. So you can have a for each, and then within that for each, you can add activities to that. So I could say that I want to, let's say every time I have an iteration, I want to call the data flow, for example. So you put the data flow in here, and then that will execute every time that you have an iteration there. Let me actually, so let's go back here. I'm going to take off my for each. And let's talk about the two primary activities we're going to work with today. First, the copy data. So you can use that copy wizard I showed you earlier to get your data into Synapse workspaces, or you can use the copy data as an activity right here. And you define your source where the data is coming from and your sink. Now the source is going to connect to those integration data sets I talked about earlier. So you'll see that I've already built a bunch of them. In fact, I have, so my source data, let's see, I think this one right here might be one. Let's try this one, this data set. So if I go ahead and click open, you'll go into the definition of that data set. And you'll see that this is actually one here in my workspace. This is using ADLS Gen 2. It is actually located in taxi data, and it is called taxidata1.csv. The data set is what you're going to use for your source and your sink. This is how you're going to move your data into Synapse workspace. So let's go to the, this is not the pipeline, let's go actually over here to the different pipeline, the copy pipeline. So here I have a copy data that was built from the copy data tool or the copy wizard. And let's look at the source. The source in this case is called source data sets. If I click open on this, again, you're going to go into the integration data set, and you see this is going to my Azure Blob Store. So this is one way to go and get the data out of an external source and bring it into Synapse. I'm connecting into my container, and I'm using a folder path called sample data, taxi data. I have some taxi data sitting there. I want to bring it into Synapse so I can analyze it here. Okay, so I'm going to drop it in here. This is going to be CSVs. I know it's a CSV because I have the source data already in my blob store. I'm using a binary copy here, because I'm not going to work with the data. I'm just going to bring it in as is, essentially just make a snapshot of that data. Okay, so if I go to my copy pipeline, your source is going to be this source data set, and then the sink is going to be this destination data set. And this is going to go to the one I showed you earlier. This is a data set going to this workspace that I'm sitting in right now. The folder is going to be taxi data 2 in the Synapse container. So this is all contained here within my current workspace. Now, the way you actually execute this, okay, so this is actually a copy data activity. This is in my pipeline. I've designed it here. I'm in design time now. You can actually go ahead and execute this directly from a debug. I'm actually going to do that while I'm talking. This will go ahead and this will execute this in real time right now, and you'll see the status coming down here. And then I'll show you the monitoring of this. Now, if you want to actually go ahead and trigger this or set a schedule for this, you would add a trigger. So when you click on add trigger, you can say trigger down. This will actually execute from the published version. By the way, I am working, I should step back for a quick second and explain to you real quickly that I'm working from my GitHub repo. I have this connected, you'll see it up here in the top left. I'm connected into my GitHub repository where I am executing from. So from here, I can have different branches and I can work in different branches. So essentially this fully supports the idea of CI/CD and of branching of Git. And so I'm connected into GitHub. And so what that will mean is that as I work with my data, I'm saving the definitions as JSONs inside of my repo. And so I can save, I can commit, and then I can deploy. So you'll be able to, from here, then publish this to the live service. So when you add a trigger, and you trigger now, you're actually going to trigger from the published version. Because I'm debugging, I'm just building and I'm trying some stuff out and I'm and I'm designing, I'm going to be here in debug mode. Okay.